Manslaughter trial for Michigan school shooter's mother, a legal analysis. The legal landscape shifted dramatically with the trial of Jennifer Crumbley. This marks the first instance of a parent being charged in connection with a mass school shooting. Her son, Ethan Crumbley, perpetrated the tragic shooting at Oxford High School. 4 students lost their lives in that horrific event. 7 others sustained injuries. Ethan Crumbley has since been sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Jennifer and James Crumbley, Ethan's parents, were both charged with involuntary manslaughter. Their trials are being conducted separately. If convicted, each faces a potential sentence of up to 15 years in prison. Give a like and subscribe. Leave a comment. The prosecution argues that Jennifer Crumbley was aware of her son's deteriorating mental state. They contend that she purchased a gun for him and even took him to a gun range. Therefore, the prosecution asserts that Jennifer Crumbley bears responsibility for the deaths at Oxford High School. Evidence suggests Ethan Crumbley was in a downward spiral when the firearm was acquired. The prosecution accuses Jennifer Crumbley of attempting to downplay and downright lie about her knowledge of his condition. This, they argue, constitutes a willful disregard of the danger that she knew of. The defense counters that Ethan's mental condition was not on her radar. They emphasize James Crumbley's love of guns. The defense also places blame on the school for failing to adequately communicate the severity of Ethan's issues. Jennifer Crumbley is portrayed as a hypervigilant mother. The defense argues that the prosecution is attempting to put a band-aid on problems that can't be fixed. They maintain that she had no knowledge of any mental disturbance or that her son would commit such a violent act. The defense highlights that Jennifer Crumbley took Ethan to various activities and even urgent care. They argue she was not responsible for the gun's storage, as her husband hid it. Furthermore, the school only suggested but did not insist that Ethan go home on the day of the shooting. The defense asserts that her son did something she could have never anticipated. They claim the school failed to inform her about problematic issues. These included Ethan sleeping in class, failing a test, and drawing a loaded gun magazine. The defense concludes that the shooting was absolutely not foreseeable and absolutely not expected. The trial commenced on January 23rd. Jury selection was completed on the Wednesday of that week. The proceedings are expected to be closely watched by legal professionals and the public alike. Both parents were sentenced to at least 10 years in prison. The judge emphasized that the convictions were not about poor parenting in general. Instead, they were about repeated acts that could have prevented the tragedy. The Crumbleys were accused of failing to secure the gun and acting indifferently to signs of their son's deteriorating mental health. They will receive credit for time already spent in jail. However, they could be held for up to 15 years if release is denied. Victims' families expressed their profound grief and anger. One statement declared, "The blood of our children is on your hands too." They believe the Crumbleys failed in their fundamental duties as parents. James Crumbley stated that he did not know his son was deeply troubled. Jennifer Crumbley claimed her son seemed normal. She blamed the school for not giving her the bigger picture. Key evidence included Ethan Crumbley's violent drawing on his school assignment. The parents did not mention that the gun in the drawing resembled one purchased days earlier. It was also revealed that mother and son had fired rounds at a shooting range. School staff expressed surprise that the Crumbleys did not volunteer to take Ethan home. This was particularly notable given the concerning nature of the drawing. Ethan Crumbley ultimately pulled a handgun from his backpack and began shooting. His actions resulted in unimaginable loss and suffering. He is now serving a life sentence for his crimes. The judge stated that the parents ignored things that would make a reasonable person feel the hair on the back of their neck stand up. She added that opportunity knocked over and over again and was ignored. These remarks underscore the severity of the parents' alleged negligence. Ethan Crumbley's journal entries revealed his internal struggles. One entry stated, "I have zero help for my mental problems. I want help, but my parents don't listen." This provides a chilling glimpse into his state of mind leading up to the shooting. Relatives of the victims were not impressed by the Crumbleys' comments. They felt the parents were portraying themselves as victims. They emphasized the importance of the Crumbleys recognizing the mistakes they made. Jennifer's case involved a lot of information we knew she had. The case against James was much more focused on the gun because he purchased it. These distinctions shaped the strategies employed by both the prosecution and the defense. Jennifer Crumbley took the stand in her own defense. She testified that the gun was his thing, referring to her husband's responsibility to secure the 9mm Sig Sauer handgun and the family's other 2 firearms. In James's defense, his lawyers highlighted his cooperation while being questioned by police in the aftermath of the shooting. This contrasted with Jennifer, who appeared reluctant to give up her phone and was the first one to bring up hiring a lawyer. Prosecutors presented over 400 pieces of evidence against Jennifer Crumbley. This included text messages and photos from her cell phone. Video footage showed her with Ethan at a gun range the weekend before the shooting. Among the most significant evidence were messages Ethan sent to his mother. He claimed he was seeing demons in the house and that it was haunted. He asked her to respond, but it's unclear if she did. Her extramarital affair also came under focus. Testimony from the man she was having a relationship with was presented. This was another way for prosecutors to suggest that she was neglecting her son, and that it was part of a larger pattern. Jennifer Crumbley testified that she knew her son was struggling emotionally. This was in part because his best friend had moved away. There was a couple of times when Ethan had expressed anxiety over taking tests, anxiety about what he was going to do after high school, whether it was college, military, she told jurors. She continued, "So he expressed those concerns to me, not to a level where I felt he needed to see a psychiatrist or mental health professional right away." She would go on to say in her testimony, "I don't think I'm a failure as a parent." After she was convicted, a juror told NBC News that the fact that Jennifer Crumbley had been the last known person to handle the 9mm handgun after she took her son to the gun range helped solidify that she had a responsibility to prevent the shooting. This was true even if she didn't know specifically that he was planning the rampage. The juror added that other jurors were persuaded by evidence from Ethan's journals. The teen had written, "My parents won't listen to me about help or a therapist," and expressed his desire to shoot up his school. In James Crumbley's case, the evidence was more glaring. He had told investigators that he was the last person to handle the weapon. He admitted to hiding it in an armoire and placing the ammunition underneath jeans in another drawer. The evidence showed that James Crumbley understood how to safely secure a firearm. He owned 2 others, and investigators found in the home a gun safe for his weapons, a cable lock for the 9mm handgun, and a pamphlet about gun safety around juveniles. In her closing argument, McDonald held up a handgun. She demonstrated to the jury how quickly it takes to insert a cable lock on a weapon. This emphasized the ease with which the tragedy could have been prevented. Unlike his wife, James Crumbley waived his right to testify. At James Crumbley's trial, a computer crimes expert testified that Crumbley had not begun his DoorDash job until after the school meeting. He then drove by the family's home 4 times, which suggested he had the opportunity to check that the guns were secure. Crumbley's lawyer, Marielle Lehman, pushed back at the prosecution's witnesses on cross-examination. She particularly deflected blame onto school officials. She argued that they were aware of the drawing and of Ethan's struggles, and suggesting they could have done more. Also at the center of both trials was a drawing Ethan did on his math homework. It depicted a gun, a shooting victim, and messages such as, "The thoughts won't stop, help me." A teacher alerted school administrators, and the Crumbleys were summoned to Oxford High School on the morning of the shooting. School staff testified at both trials that the parents never warned them that Ethan had access to a gun. They also did not offer to take him home, saying they had work. Jennifer Crumbley worked in marketing, and James Crumbley was a DoorDash delivery driver. The Crumbleys each face up to 15 years in prison per 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter. In Michigan, felonies that rise out of the same event must run concurrently. Therefore, the most the judge can impose is 15 years in total. For now, the husband and wife share something else in common. They will both be sentenced on April 9th. This case will undoubtedly have lasting implications for parental responsibility and school safety.